Okay, so this is lesson 1, and we're going to talk about ratios, rates, and unit rates. But before we get started, we're going to go back over some key definitions. Now, these might look familiar from 6th grade, but if not, that is why we're going to go over them. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a ratio. Now, a ratio is an ordered pair of numbers. So an ordered pair of numbers. Now, both those numbers should not be 0, but we really won't be seeing that right now. So a ratio can be written in 3 different ways. It can be written as a fraction, in words, with the word 2 in the middle, or with a colon. We will mostly be seeing ratios written as fractions. A rate is a comparison of 2 quantities or 2 numbers, but both of those numbers will have different units, so with different units. A unit rate is going to be the value of our ratio. So if we were to actually try to solve or simplify, it's the value of the ratio. Now off to the side in our little box, we're going to put some examples. So I'm going to write examples up top. So the first example we're going to give is on our ratios. So if we have a ratio of 3 to 4, I could write that in words, so exactly like how I said it, 3 to 4. I could write it as a fraction, so 3 over 4, or with my colon, so 3 to 4. My rate is going to be a comparison of our quantities with those units. So for this example, we're going to say 5 miles per 2 hours. And I'm going to have you circle the word per, because that's a key word that we're going to see quite often, and that tells us something specific. Now the next thing is my unit rate. So if I look at my rate above 5 miles per 2 hours, my unit rate would be the value of that ratio, 5 to 2. So that would be 5 over 2. In order to find that value, I'm going to divide 5 divided by 2. 5 divided by 2, put it in your calculator. It's going to give you 2.5. Now this would give me 2.5 miles per 1 hour, and that would be my unit rate. So we're going to practice this in our example below. So it says, how fast is our class? So we're passing papers, and we're timing ourselves on how fast we can pass those papers. So it says, find the ratio of number of papers passed to time. So I'm going to circle 2, because that's helping me understand how my ordered pair is going to be written. So that means I'm going to write this with papers first and then time. So this would be written as 24 to 12. You can write it with words, 24 to 12, or as a fraction, 24 over 12. My unit rate is the value. So I'm going to mainly look at this fraction here. So I want the value of this fraction. So 24 divided by 12. Well, 12 goes into 24 twice. So this would be 2 over 1, or just 2. And this is in papers per second. Next one. 24 papers were passed in 11 seconds. So 24 to 11, 24 to 11, and 24 to 11. To figure out the unit rate, I'm going to do 24 divided by 11. I can just use my calculator. You plug that in, it's going to give you 2.2 over 1, or just 2.2. And again, this is papers per second. Next one, 24 papers passed, and this time they went in 10 seconds. So 24 to 10, 24 to 10, and 24 over 10. I'm going to divide those. When I divide it, I'm going to get 2.4 over 1, or just 2.4. So my unit rate is 2.4 papers per second. Last one. This time they passed the 24 papers in 8 seconds, so 24 to 8, 24 to 8, and 24 divided by 8, or over 8. When I go ahead and find my unit rate, I'm going to divide 24 divided by 8. Well, 8 goes into 24 evenly. It goes in 3 times. So I'm going to have 3 over 1. But that's just the same thing as 3. So this is 3 papers per second. Now, if I take a look at my unit rate, every single unit rate has the same denominator, which is the number on the bottom. Every single one of them has a denominator of 1. And that's going to be very specific for your unit rate. Your unit rate is always going to have a denominator of 1, which means we could write it as just a whole number like we did with 2, 2.2, 2.4, and 3. Okay, let's go down to the next example. So this one says our class by gender. So it's comparing the number of boys to the number of girls, just asking you for that ratio. So it says ratio of boys to girls. That means boys should be written first in all of our ratios. So let's write that out. So boys to girls, so 12 to 10. So I'm going to have 12 to 10, 12 to 10, or my fraction 12 over 10. Same thing for the whole 7th grade. So this is still boys to girls, so 120 to 106, 120 to 106, or 120 over 106. Still said the same way, 120 to 106. Now, all of those ratios are exactly the same, they have the same numbers. But what we can do is we can make something called an equivalent ratio. And an equivalent ratio just means that it's a ratio that's equal. So when you simplify it or multiply it or divide it by the same number, it's going to give you the same exact ratio in the end. So let's find a couple of equivalent ratios based on what we have for our ratio of boys to girls. So let's start with our first one. So for the class, we can create an equivalent ratio. Let's say this time we're going to multiply by something. So we can say multiply by 2. So that means that I'm going to have my original ratio, so 12 to 10, and I'm going to multiply them both by 2. So I'm going to have 12 times 2 and 10 times 2. These parentheses here just mean multiply. So 12 times 24, 12 times 2 is 24. 10 times 2 is 20. So that would be an equivalent ratio. Because if I work backwards and divide by 2, I'm going to get 12 to 10. If we look at the whole 7th grade, I have a ratio, and this time I'm going to write this ratio as a fraction. So I have a ratio of 120 to 106. And if I go ahead and simplify and do 120 divided by 106 in my calculator, and simplify, I can get 60 over 53. And those two are equal because what I can do is go backwards and I'll get the same exact ratio. So that is an equivalent ratio. Just means that they're going to give you the same exact thing that you started with. Okay, so from what we saw on the other side, we talked about how we find a unit rate. To find a unit rate, what we were doing that whole time when we set up our fraction was simply dividing. We simply divide. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're actually going to put that to use in some problems. So it says, Adrian biked 24 miles in 3 hours. Now we're going to do something specific here that I want to make sure everybody has on their paper. So we're going to take a look at how this is written. It says, Adrian biked 24 miles in 3 hours. We're going to underline miles, circle in, and double underline hours, because that's going to tell you exactly how you need to order your ratio. And on your paper, on your homework, on your test, this needs to be written down. So this is miles in hours. In tells you where you're going to put your fraction sign or how you're going to divide it. So this should be miles over hours. And we're going to box that in. That's our label, and we need that on our paper. Now that we have that figured out, it's asking us about how many miles she rides in just 1 hour. Well, whenever you see the word 1, that automatically is going to tell you that you're looking for a unit rate. So we're going to find the unit rate based on the information they gave us. So they say 24 miles in 3 hours. So if we take 24 miles that she did in 3 hours and divide them, when we divide them, we're going to get our answer of 8 over 1, or just 8. Now this would be 8, and we're going to write this with our label, miles per hour. The next part says, describe what this means in the context of the problem. So what this means is that Adrian can bike at a rate of 8 miles. Actually, so what this means is that Adrian bikes 8 miles for every 1 hour she rides. So that's what it means in the context of the problem. Next one. It says, Julia read 52 pages in 2 hours. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to underline pages, circle in, and double underline hours. That's going to help me set up my label. So it should be pages on the top over hours. I'm going to box that in. Okay, so 52 is the amount of pages, and she did that in 2 hours. I'm going to divide those on my calculator, so 52 divided by 2. And that's 26. And I'm going to write pages per hour. That's what that slash means. Okay. Same second part. Describe what this means in the context of the problem. So our sentence should have something to do with pages read in an amount of hours. Okay, so let's say. So it says Julia can read 26 pages in 1 hour. Okay, so that's how we find our unit rate and how we describe it in the context of the problem. Next, now we're going to compare our unit rates. And a lot of times what we're doing when we're comparing them is being asked what a better buy is. So a lot of times this comes up with money. So we're going to be trying to find a better buy, which just is asking us to figure out which one's going to be cheaper. So it says Value Mart is advertising a back to school sale on pencils. A pack of 30 sells for $7.97, whereas a 12-pack of the same brand costs $4.77. Which is the better buy, and how do you know? Well, whenever we're doing a better buy question, money is always going to be in our numerator, and whatever we're comparing is going to be on the bottom. So for this, it's going to be the number of pencils. So we're going to write number of pencils. So we're trying to figure out how much it is for just one pencil. To figure that out, we need two different problems, two different comparisons. So we have a 30 pack of pencils. That's the one we're going to start with. So the 30 pack of pencils costs $7.97. And that's for 30 of the pencils. So we're going to divide those. So $7.97 divided by 30. We're going to put in the calculator. We're going to write this out as the decimal that they gave us. So it's 0.2656, and that 6 is repeating. So we write the little bar on the top pack. So the 12 pack costs $4.77. So we're going to have $4.77 divided by 12. So these are my two different ones that I'm comparing. Okay. So now $4.77 divided by 12 is $39.75. So when I take a look at these, even if I round it to the nearest cent, because it's money, so this would be 0.26. Well, I'm going to look here. My 5 tells me to bump it up, so this would be 0.27. If I look over here, my 9 is in my hundredths place. That would be my nearest cent. My 7 tells me to bump it up, so this would be 40 cents. So this is telling me that my 30 pack, it costs 27 cents for one pencil, but my 12 pack costs 40 cents for one pencil. So that means that the 30 pack for the $7.97 is the better buy, and we're explaining, and it's asking us how we know. Well, we know this because it is cheaper per pencil. And our math proves that. Okay, on to the next page. So on this page, I'm going to have you go ahead and try this on your own first. So I'm going to have you pause the video. When you're all done, go ahead and unpause the video and then watch it through to make sure and check your work. Should she buy? Okay, well, if I take a look, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 different brands. So that means I should have 4 different sections of my problem. So the first one would be the Nutty brand. 2 would be Grandma's. 3 would be Bees. And the 4th brand is Save-A-Lot. Now notice that I am prepping my paper for the problem that I'm doing. This organization is extremely helpful and makes it a lot easier for you to follow your work when you're going through and solving your problems. Okay, so the Nutty brand. Remember that when we're doing better buy, we always have money divided by what we're finding. So in this case, it's talking about ounces. So this would be money per ounces. And ounces is written as OZ. So we want to know how much they're going to charge you for 1 ounce. Okay, so my Nutty brand is $2.19 for 12 ounces. For just 1 ounce, when we divide, we should get 1.1825. Grandma's, $2.79. For 18 ounces, when you divide, 0.155. For Bees, $4.69 for the 28 ounces. So when we divide, 0.1675. And the last one, Save-A-Lot, is $6.60 for 40 ounces. And this was 0.165. Now when I look at all 4 of them, the cheapest one is going to be Grandma's peanut butter. So now it's asking us which brand she would buy. So we're going to say Cheryl should buy grandma's because it is cheaper per ounce. And the last part just kind of talks about rounding when we're writing money, especially with our decimals. So we always want to round to the hundredths place. All right, that is the rest of lesson 1. Good luck with your homework.